Hey everyone, this is about what is the difference between structural and social action theories. So why is it important that you know the difference? Well, it's there on the specification. And theory methods appear on both paper 1 and paper 3. But more importantly, having a good understanding of the basics of these theory is really helpful overall, because if you know what the theory is, then whatever the question is, you should be able to apply it. So firstly, who would we associate with our structural and social action sociologist? So to start with, our main sociologists are Durkheim, who's a functionalist based on consensus, Marx, who is a conflict theory, and Firestone, a feminist theory. These are our first structural sociologists. They're looking at society as a whole. They explore how society is structured that creates social forces that influences our behaviour at an individual level, whether it's maintaining consensus, capitalism or patriarchy. This is in comparison to social action theorists such as Weber, who instead looked at individual meanings. Other sociologists who are also considered as a social action theorist are our interactionists such as Mead, Cooley, labelling theory, Becker, who instead of exploring society from a structural approach, they looked at the meanings that people attach to their behaviour. Now, Weber is unique, and this is a bit of analysis. Even though we would associate him with social action, he also ensured to locate the meaning of actions within a social structure. So it's really important to know that. So what keywords would we associate with our structural social action approaches? So our structural approaches look at society, how it is organised from the top. In that case, we call them macro theories. They're big theories, and they're exploring how society is organised or built. These are top down, so they're looking at society from above to explain how the different social forces shape our individual behaviour. Whereas our social action theories aren't interested in the large-scale explanations. They're looking at it on a micro level. This is a bottom-up perspective that explore how society is created by individual behaviour, their actions and their interactions. So instead of social forces shaping our actions, instead individuals have something that we call free will or agency. So who are our main theories then? So let's start off with our main structural theories. These are functionalist and Marxist. These were writing during the industrial or the Enlightenment period, and they were looking at the patterns of society as a whole. Durkheim was showing how the different institutions, such as religion for example, created a collective conscience, an agreement on norms and values, whereas Marxist explored the impact of capitalism and how this shaped the exploitation of workers and that influenced their behaviour. And this was through messages of ideology, which then avoided the working class challenging these ideas. This is in contrast to our social action theories at the time. The work of Weber, he was able to demonstrate through his study of the Protestant work ethic and the spirit of capitalism how individual meanings and values, or in this case, the religious values, such as hard work, aesthetic lifestyle, and so on, collectively on a whole shaped society. Now remember that Weber did locate this within the wider societal context and how these values actually shaped the modern capitalist system. As we move into the 20th century, we start to see further structural and social action theories being developed. We've got feminist theories. They're looking at how society is structured to benefit patriarchy. So we look at the different institutions and how they are all reinforcing this ideology, this misogyny, these patriarchal ideas. Now remember, there is some AO3 here because there are different types of feminists, and some of these do look at the female experience using methods that we would normally associate with social action theories or interpretivist methods. On our social action theory, we started to see the development of theories such as the dramaturgical model, and this is from Goffman, and the word is drama. It's like a play. We are all actors, we use props, we're performing on a stage, we're following a loose script, and it makes social life predictable and possible. And we use this thing called impression management, which you might have come across. We also look at labelling, developed from the work of Becker, who identified that people develop a master status based on how they are labelled or looked at by other people. And as a result, this creates a process called the self-fulfilling prophecy. So depending on how we look at society, whether it's structural as a whole or from a social action, this will influence the methods that they use to study the society that they're exploring. So for example, if we want to look at the structural or the macro approach, we need methods that will collect a lot of data in order to create generalizations. So these methods might be official statistics, questionnaires, official surveys that give us large amounts of quantitative data. We can see patterns, we can see trends, and these tend to be favoured by positivists, and they want to achieve their main goal of reliable and representative data. And surveys such as the census really give us the perfect snapshot of society as a whole. Now, on the other hand, social action theories are not interested in making large-scale generalisations. They want to look at the interactions on a local level. This means that they want to understand the dynamics between individuals, the meanings they attach to their behaviour. So they will use methods such as observations, unstructured interviews and documents, and we can understand people's lives a lot more clearly. So as a result, validity is achieved, or in the words of Weber, Verstehen or empathy. So now we've got that description of what structural and social action theories are out the way, what methods they use and who they are. Let's have a look at how you might have used them in some of the topics that you have studied. I've got one from year 1, one from year 2 and a bonus one, theory and methods. So from year 1, a compulsory topic that you will study is education. Now, education in a modern society was this one-size-fits-all. It taught the ideas of shared culture, reproducing social solidarity, or getting students prepared for the world of work through skills. And this is a structural approach according to functionalist and Marxist. And what they're doing is that they're seeing the benefit of education on a societal level. And often these theories do have a little bit of an input in social policy, for example, because of the data that they've produced. Whereas your social action theories, they don't want to look at the system as a whole. They're looking at the dynamics of people's relationships with each other. For example, how students or pupils might interact with teachers in the classroom, or even with each other, with other pupils, and how those relationships will play out, and how even some students might even reject those labels. Remember that some have that free will. Your second compulsory topic is from crime and deviance. So what contributions have structural theorists made? So for example, from our functionalist, they look at crime as being inevitable and the functions of crime that benefit society as a whole, and that some deviance can actually help society function. Or they explain crime as a response to societal goals. For example, Merton's American Dream, and how might some people not be able to achieve it legitimately, so respond in different ways. And again, looking at it from a societal level, Marxists explore how the values of capitalism cause crime, calling it criminogenic capitalism. So how the social forces of capitalism influence individual behaviour. And both of these theories are looking at the patterns of crime statistics to back up their theories. Now, a large amount of your time is dedicated to the social action theories. So we look at things like labelling theory, primary and secondary deviance. Not all acts are deviance, but it's the societal reaction to it and how it actually might create more deviance. And some really valuable information comes from pieces of research such as the mods and rockers, and this really is a good study to demonstrate this deviancy amplification spiral. We also look at phenomenology, and students are quite scared of that term, but really all it is Cicero uses phenomenology to look at typifications, how the police stereotype, how do we group people together in order to make sense and interact with those people. And as a result, crime statistics then lack validity. Because of these processes, we can't be certain of their accuracy because they are creations of people's behaviour. They are a social construct. So as a result, this creates a dark figure of crime, questioning the usefulness of structural theories. And finally, from theory and methods, we have got this classic debate between structural and social action through the study of suicide. So from our structural viewpoint, Durkheim, he aimed to look at how social forces such as moral regulation and social integration, and how integrated a person was, linked to the suicide rates. And he claimed to see patterns, concluding that these social forces influence these patterns and as a result call these social facts. So the more integrated a person was, the less likely they were to commit suicide, for example. Now, social action theorists argued that this missed the point. We shouldn't just be looking at the patterns. Instead, we need to explore the meanings attached to these acts. Douglas was an interactionist, and he was really interested in the meanings that people attached to why they committed suicide. And Douglas, from an ethnomethodology viewpoint, he aimed to look at the methods that the coroners used when determining whether an act is a suicide or not. And he concluded that these suicide rates are a social construct. They are, like crime statistics, the result of the actions and the decisions of people rather than being objective facts. Now, there are some sociologists that aim to combine the two. So we've got neo-Marxist, and they're combining Marxist theory with the interactionist viewpoint. So, for example, from crime, we've got Taylor, Walton and Young, and they aim to create a fully social theory of deviance. They acknowledge that there were structural approaches that influenced why a person committed crime. So, for example, the influence of capitalism, structural inequality, but they also then aim to look at why the meanings of why a person's committed crime, the societal reactions, the long-term effect of it. Likewise, within education, Willis, also a neo-Marxist, located the influence of capitalism on the school system, wanting to create obedient workers, for example, but he recognised with the lads that he was observing that they rejected those rules, indicating a little bit of free will, but as a result, they ended up where capitalism wanted them, in working class jobs, combining the two theories. And our final is from Giddens, and this is a structuration theory. And he recognised that you can't have structure without the action, and action is a result of the structure. So we have actions and we perform our actions, even though we think we've got free will. But the more that we perform our actions, it creates a structure which then reinforces the actions that we have. So he does argue that there is that combination between the two. So massive thank you for watching. Hopefully this will help you. There is also modern versus postmodern videos, and there's one which is valid versus reliable. If you've got any questions, please make sure that you leave them in the comments. Thank you.